There are moments when the world seems to close its doors, and silence swallows every echo of hope. The heart grows heavy, not with the weight of what is seen, but with what feels unseen. The burdens of unanswered prayers, the ache of unhealed wounds, the fear that the divine has turned away. And yet, it is in this silence that Allah whispers most profoundly, calling the soul to a trust deeper than the mind can comprehend. In every hardship, there lies a hidden covenant of mercy. Allah reminds us that nothing touches the heart without His knowledge, that every pang of loss or wave of despair carries within it the seeds of rejuvenation. The Prophet taught that the believer's reliance on Allah is like a tree rooted deep in faith, swaying in the storms, yet never breaking. This is the sacred geometry of trust, not in the absence of difficulty, but in the presence of a Lord whose wisdom surpasses every understanding. We carry within us wounds that cannot be shown, sorrow that cannot be named, moments where the soul drifts in quiet numbness. Guilt lingers like fog, regrets cling like chains, and the heart wonders if its prayers ever rise beyond the ceiling of the world. In these human struggles, there is no weakness in turning to Allah. There is the courage of admitting that the heart cannot bear alone what the heart was never meant to bear. Yet the divine perspective transcends all horizons. Allah tells us in the Quran that His mercy envelops all things. Even when the heart cannot see beyond today's trial, He has woven a plan invisible to human eyes, stitching the cracks of life with threads stronger than we can imagine. The night is darkest just before the dawn, and every delay, every unanswered question is a soft hand guiding us to a light yet unseen. Faith revives the heart like rain upon dry earth. Tawakkul becomes the pulse of the soul, each beat infused with remembrance and surrender. The whisper of la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah becomes a balm, dissolving anxiety into trust, and the heart remembers that it belongs to one who never forgets, never abandons. In this revival, peace is not absence of trial, but presence of the divine in the trial. Let your trust be an act of daily devotion. Speak to your heart in dhikr, open your hands in prayer, and release the tension of control. Anchor your heart in the certainty that Allah is closer than your jugular vein, that every hardship is a bridge, not a prison, and that submission is not weakness, but the most luminous strength. Hold on to this, the soul that surrenders wholly, that breathes in Allah's timing and exhales the illusions of control, will discover a light that no darkness can touch. Hope is not beyond reach. It is within the hands that raise themselves in prayer. Return to Him, even if your knees tremble, even if your heart quakes. There, in the tender presence of the Most Merciful, your wounded heart will find its wings, and your spirit will rise, unwavering, towards a dawn written long before your first breath. Silent reliance is the sacred stillness of the heart that chooses trust over turmoil, even when the world trembles around it. It is not the outward display of patience or the spoken words of submission, but a quiet surrender that flows beneath every breath, where the soul allows Allah to carry what it cannot bear alone. In the hush of this surrender, the heart learns a language that speaks without sound, a language of knowing that every difficulty, every shadow is held within the infinite wisdom of the Most Merciful. When we practice true tawakkul, we recognize that our hands are small, our plans fragile, and our understanding limited. Yet in this humility, a remarkable strength emerges, the courage to release the illusion of control and rest entirely in Allah's decree. The believer does not cling to outcomes or fret over timing, for the heart has tasted the serenity of knowing that nothing reaches it except through the divine will. Even unanswered prayers are transformed into acts of trust, each delay an invitation to deeper surrender. Silent reliance is also the companion of hidden struggles, those moments when tears fall unnoticed, when the mind wrestles with doubt, and when fatigue presses upon the spirit. In these private spaces, trust becomes a refuge. The heart whispers its reliance in silence, not for applause or recognition, but because it knows that Allah is listening closer than the beat of its own pulse. This form of trust reshapes suffering. Pain is no longer merely endured. It becomes a conduit for mercy. Anxiety softens under the quiet assurance that the unseen hands of Allah are weaving the believer's path. The soul, anchored in this intimate reliance, experiences a resilience that transcends circumstance, a peace that persists even when the world offers none, and a light that glows steadily within, untouched by fear or uncertainty. Mercy's veil is the hidden grace that drapes over every hardship, so subtle that the heart often mistakes struggle for abandonment. Allah's mercy does not always arrive in the form we expect. It may come as a delay, a trial, or a challenge that stretches the soul beyond comfort. Yet within this delicate veil lies the secret of divine care. Every pain is a message, every difficulty a gentle guidance, every disappointment a quiet hand leading the believer closer to what is truly best. The Prophet taught that what appears bitter may conceal sweetness beyond imagination, and that every test carries a hidden treasure for those who seek it with sincerity. When the heart learns to see through this veil, suffering transforms. What was once despair becomes a mirror reflecting Allah's tender attention, even in ways unseen. Loss, loneliness, and the weight of unanswered prayers are no longer evidence of distance. They are evidence of a mercy that moves silently, orchestrating what the mind cannot yet grasp. The soul begins to sense the rhythm of this divine orchestration, noticing that every moment of hardship coincides with unseen protection, every delay harbors hidden provision, and every closed door opens to a path shaped by infinite wisdom. Mercy's veil also teaches the believer patience beyond endurance. It invites the heart to release insistence on immediate resolution and to rest in the knowledge that Allah's timing is flawless, that His perspective encompasses all dimensions of existence, and that His compassion is vast enough to cradle every tear. The believer begins to witness the subtle blessings that accompany trials, clarity of intention, purification of the heart, and a quiet awakening to the presence of Allah. Through this lens, hardship becomes luminous. The veil itself, once perceived as a barrier, is recognized as the very fabric of mercy. It softens the sting of suffering, illuminates unseen lessons, and nurtures a trust that deepens with every trial, creating a heart capable of finding peace even amid uncertainty. Temporal shadows are the fleeting moments of darkness that drift across the believer's life, reminding the heart of its fragility and the impermanence of worldly struggles. They arrive without warning. A sudden loss, a shattering disappointment, or the quiet ache of unmet desires. And yet within their brevity, they carry a profound spiritual lesson. No hardship, no matter how consuming, is eternal. Allah tells us in the Quran that every difficulty is paired with ease, and shadows we perceive are only temporary, poised to dissolve in the light of His guidance. These shadows teach the soul humility. They reveal how little control we possess over the unfolding of life and how dependent we are on the mercy and wisdom of our Creator. In moments when the heart feels submerged, it is precisely this awareness that cultivates reliance on Allah, fostering a tenderness toward one's own vulnerability and a patient waiting upon His decree. The darkness itself becomes a sacred teacher, showing that trust is not born in comfort, but in the willingness to let the heart rest quietly in divine hands. Temporal shadows also deepen gratitude. When the sun breaks through the veil of trial, the believer's spirit recognizes the contrast, the sweetness of relief, the warmth of hope, and the subtle blessings that may have been overlooked in easier times. Even in prolonged hardship, the heart learns to find light within the shadow, noticing how endurance polishes character, how patience sharpens clarity, and how faith transforms adversity into a bridge rather than a prison. The soul that comprehends the impermanence of its trials grows resilient. It learns that suffering is transient, that no sorrow is infinite, and that Allah's light is always ready to penetrate the thickest gloom. Every shadow, no matter how dense, carries the promise of dawn, a quiet assurance that hardship is but a passing companion, and the heart, if anchored in tawakkul, will emerge unbroken, illuminated by the divine presence that never abandons. Restoration of the heart begins in the gentle awakening of a wounded soul, a process unseen yet profoundly transformative. When despair has hollowed the chest and the weight of life feels unbearable, faith becomes the balm that seeps into every crevice of pain. Allah reminds us that the hearts are His creations, delicate yet resilient, capable of revival when touched by His mercy. The believer who turns inward, seeking solace in remembrance and reflection, discovers that even the most shattered corners of the spirit can bloom again under the nurturing light of divine presence. In this restoration, the heart learns to release the burdens it has carried too long. Regrets, guilt, and the echo of past mistakes. Each act of dhikr, each whispered prayer, and each surrender to Allah's will gently loosens the grip of sorrow. The Prophet showed that the heart's true healing is not found in the absence of trials, but in the embrace of trust and the conscious acknowledgement that every pain carries the fingerprints of divine wisdom. Healing, then, is not a sudden surge, but a quiet, steady infusion of hope, a patient unfolding of serenity that restores the soul's natural rhythm. Restoration also awakens a deeper sensitivity to mercy. The believer begins to notice subtle signs of divine care, a comforting verse, an answered prayer at an unexpected moment, the calm in a chaotic day. These moments become threads of light, weaving the torn heart back into wholeness. Even the fatigue of past suffering transforms into strength, teaching the heart resilience and compassion. Through this process, the soul relearns how to trust. The once wounded heart, tender yet fortified, begins to pulse with renewed courage, each beat echoing the presence of Allah. It becomes a sanctuary of hope, a space where peace resides despite life's turbulence, and where the spirit, having been tenderly restored, can face tomorrow with unwavering reliance on the one who mends hearts beyond human sight. Invisible threads are the subtle, unseen connections through which Allah weaves the tapestry of our lives. In moments of confusion, when doors seem closed and prayers unanswered, these threads stretch across time and circumstance, linking at appears broken to outcomes far beyond human perception. The heart may question, the mind may wrestle, yet Allah's wisdom is at work, stitching each fragment of life into a design that carries purpose, mercy, and perfection. The believer begins to sense that nothing is wasted, that no tear falls without significance, and that every delay is a deliberate step along the path He has ordained. These threads reveal the intimate care of the divine. Even when trials seem random or despair threatens to engulf, Allah's guidance is quietly present, pulling the believer toward lessons that only patience and trust can unveil. The Prophet illustrated that unseen guidance often precedes visible relief, and that reliance upon Allah requires faith in the threads that cannot be measured, touched, or fully understood. In this faith, the heart learns to let go of impatience, to release the illusion of control, and to rest in the knowledge that every circumstance, however perplexing, is being held in precise, loving balance. Invisible threads also illuminate the interconnectedness of human experience. Sometimes, the mercy we seek is delivered through unexpected means, through people, events, or opportunities that seem unrelated, yet are meticulously aligned with divine wisdom. The believer learns to recognize that life's patterns are rarely accidental, and that the hand of Allah moves silently behind every encounter, every challenge, every moment of guidance. Through awareness of these threads, trust deepens. Anxiety softens as the heart perceives the subtle choreography of the unseen, where every hardship, every unanswered plea, every waiting period is part of a sacred design. In this realization, the soul rests not in certainty of outcome, but in certainty of care, in the knowledge that Allah's planning is perfect, and that every unseen connection is a bridge toward mercy, and fulfillment. Sacred patience is not the mere endurance of life's hardships, but the intentional cultivation of hope and serenity amid uncertainty. It is a patience that engages the heart, mind, and soul simultaneously, allowing the believer to remain steadfast while trusting in the perfect timing of Allah. Sabr is a luminous thread that weaves through every trial, transforming difficulty into a classroom of divine wisdom, where the soul learns to move with grace rather than resistance. The Prophet taught that true patience is active, not passive. It is a surrender that breathes life into despair, turning each moment of waiting into an act of worship and closeness to Allah. In practicing sacred patience, the heart learns to accept the rhythm of life without rebellion. Trials no longer feel like punishments, but like sacred invitations, opportunities to refine character, to cultivate resilience, and to anchor the soul in trust. The believer discovers that impatience is often a reflection of attachment to worldly outcomes, whereas patience opens the door to spiritual vision, revealing that Allah's plan surpasses every understanding. Each moment of delay becomes a lesson in reliance, each hardship a mirror reflecting the strength of surrender, and each unanswered prayer a quiet reminder that mercy often arrives in forms we cannot yet perceive. Sacred patience is intimately tied to remembrance. When the heart engages in dhikr, it finds a rhythm that steadies its trembling, a melody that reminds it of the one who holds all timing and all wisdom. The believer begins to notice the subtle blessings embedded in waiting: clarity of intent, fortification of spirit, purification of desires, and the gentle unfolding of divine solutions that human effort alone could never achieve. Through this patient presence, the soul is transformed. Patience becomes luminous, a bridge between uncertainty and trust, between suffering and serenity, and between despair and hope. It is a sacred art of living, where each heartbeat aligns with the rhythm of Allah's mercy, and each breath whispers surrender to His perfect decree. The anchor of presence is the steadfast awareness of Allah's closeness, a quiet yet powerful force that grounds the believer amidst life's tempests. It is not simply knowing about Allah, but sensing His nearness in every heartbeat, every breath, and every silent moment of the soul. This awareness transforms fear into comfort, chaos into stillness, and anxiety into an intimate dialogue with the most merciful. When the heart is anchored in His presence, even the heaviest burdens feel lighter, for the soul is tethered to a source of infinite care that cannot falter. Consistent dhikr becomes the lifeline of this presence. Each repetition, each whispered remembrance is a thread that ties the wandering heart back to its creator, reminding the soul that it is never alone, even when circumstances suggest otherwise. The Prophet demonstrated that consciousness of Allah is the believer's greatest companion, an invisible friend who listens without judgment, provides without request, and surrounds without limitation. In cultivating this awareness, the heart develops resilience, for it leans not on fleeting human certainty, but on the eternal constancy of divine companionship. The anchor of presence also reshapes perception. Moments of trial, once overwhelming, become opportunities to experience Allah's closeness. The silence of the night, the pang of uncertainty, and the ache of longing are transformed into sacred spaces where the soul communes with its Lord. Every whisper of prayer, every sigh of surrender, every breath of gratitude reinforces the tether, strengthening trust and softening the sting of hardship. Through this anchor, life's storms do not uproot the believer. The heart, anchored in Allah's presence, becomes a harbor of serenity, capable of holding fear and hope simultaneously, trusting that the one who is nearest sees all, knows all, and holds all. The soul learns to dwell in this intimacy, discovering that true security is not the absence of struggle, but the profound assurance that Allah is always near, unseen, yet unmistakably present, sustaining every heartbeat, Hold firmly to the hand of Allah, for He is the silent strength beneath every trial, the unseen guide through every shadow, and the ever-present source of mercy that revives even the most burdened hearts. Let your soul surrender fully, not in resignation, but in the luminous certainty that every hardship is a bridge, every delay a hidden blessing, and every tear a seed of renewal. Return to Him with the trembling of hope, the courage of trust, and the quiet conviction that no darkness is eternal. In this surrender, the heart awakens, fear dissolves, and the spirit rises, unshaken, luminous, and anchored in the boundless mercy of the One who holds all things. Let your trust be unwavering, your patience sacred, and your remembrance constant, for in the presence of Allah, even the heaviest heart learns to soar.